Today we are talking about lesson 24. We're going to write quadratic functions with given zeros. So far we've learned a few things within this unit. We learned how to graph, and then we figured out, let's say we have two solutions. Let's say this is a solution and that's a solution. We know how to get them, right? We know the solutions are where the graph touches the x-axis. These are called zeros, okay? Because y is equal to 0. This is the y-axis. Y is equal to 0. Y'all get that? Y'all see that? Okay. And then we said, well, that's kind of tedious, right? Because no one likes graphing because it's kind of difficult. So we thought, okay, we could solve these by factoring. So I gave you an equation like this, and last week we learned how to use Xbox, and we would solve by putting in our numbers into our Xbox, and we're like, okay, we got our new factors, and we use this thing called the zero product property, and then we figured out x minus 3 is equal to 0, x plus 1 is equal to 0. Therefore, our answer is going to be x is equal to 3, and x is equal to negative 1, right? Make sense so far? We know all this. Today, we're going to think backwards. What if I were to give you these two answers at the end, and I want you to get to this answer, back to the original problem? So let's say I give you these two answers. How do we get back to here? That's the question. Okay? I want you to think about that. If I gave you these two answers here, how would you get back to the original problem? Okay? Think about that. Why don't you take a moment, tell your neighbor, predict how would you get back to the original problem if I gave you these two answers. Go. Okay, so if we get the two answers, we could go backwards. Remember, math, we could do anything we do forwards, we could do backwards. Okay, so what's the opposite of adding? Opposite of subtracting. Opposite of multiplying. Opposite of dividing. Opposite of squaring. Square rooting, right? And opposite of square rooting is? Okay, opposite of factoring is multiplying, really, because we're factoring polynomials. We're going to bring them back together by multiplying. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. Here are the steps. They're up here on the board, but if you're in the video, you should pause it so you get to write these down. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a couple problems. So on today's homework or on a test or anytime I say these are the solutions, how do you write an equation for that graph? So number one, the directions, always read your directions. It says write an equation with given zeros, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is rewrite these as x is equal to negative 2 and x is equal to negative 3. I'm taking each of my solutions and I'm setting it equal to x, because that's really what it is. X is equal to negative 2 and x is equal to negative 3. Then I want each of my equations set equal to 0. So right now I have x is equal to negative 2, so I'm going to do the opposite of minus 2, which is add 2. Whatever I do to one side, I do to both. And we get x plus 2 is equal to 0. On this side, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So we get x plus 3 is equal to 0. Okay? That's the first step. Now I could remember from my from last week's lessons when we factored, I used the zero product property. These are both like binomials, right? I could put parentheses around them. So I could take each of these and use the zero product property, but I'm going to use it backwards. So I got x plus 2 times x plus 3 is all equal to 0. Okay? Now I'm going to multiply this out. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. X times 2 is 2x. And then 2 times 3 is positive 6, all equal to 0. Okay? Combine like terms, these two right here, 3x plus 2x is 5x, and that's a positive 5x. We got x squared plus 6, all equal to 0. And while I'm at it, there's your answer for the second one too. And while I'm at it, I'm going to rewrite this, but I'm going to change my 0 to a y. Okay? That makes sense? So that's number one. So we just went from the answers all the way back to the original problem. Okay, so how did I do it again? You take your answers, you set them equal to x, and then you start working backwards. Opposite of negative 2 is you add 2. Same thing with 3. Okay, two binomials. We're going to use the zero product property backwards to create two binomials being multiplied to be 0. Multiply it out, you simplify, and then you put your answer with, instead of 0, it's going to be y. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, watch me do number 2 now. Looks a lot harder. We have fractions, right? So I remember last week we had fractional problems. That's when my Xbox had, like, I had to actually reduce fractions. So same thing, though. You're just going to set each of my answers equal to a here, because they're both a this time, you see. So a is equal to negative 1/2, and a is equal to negative 3/4. On this first one, I want to do the opposite of divide by 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So 2 times a is 2a. This right side, these 2's cancel out, leaving just negative 1 on this side. And while I'm at it, I want everything on this right side to be equal to positive, or to 0. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So we got 2a plus 1 is equal to 0. On this right-hand side, we're going to do the same concept, except we're going to use different numbers. Multiply by 4 first, and then we're going to add by 3. So we got 4a is equal to negative 3. Add 3 on both sides. So we got 4a plus 3 is equal to 0. Okay. Got 2 binomials here. I put parentheses here because these are going to be my binomials now. Now I'm going to use the zero product property and multiply these together. Okay, and I'm just going to FOIL, right? So we got, my fat fingers there. Multiply out 8a squared plus 6a plus 4a plus 3. I'm going to combine like terms. We got 6a plus 4a is equal to 10a. 8a squared, bring that down. And then we have positive 3 equals to 0. And of course I want to take my 0 and change it to a y. And I want to show you something. You could actually put the y first if you like. So instead of putting everything equal to y, let's put equal to y at the beginning in the front like that. And we're all done. Okay? So that's how you do numbers 1 and 2. Does that make sense? All we're doing is we're thinking backwards, but this is one of those skills you need to know how to do. Okay? So if someone ever gives you, like on a test, answers, you should be able to produce an equation. Okay? Questions on numbers 1 or 2? Okay, good. So let's have you turn your neighbors. Let's discuss this for a moment. Okay, so continuing on here. Let me do a few of these together. Number 3. We got x is equal to negative 4 and negative 12. Let's start this one up together. Okay, so turn to your neighbor to describe what you would do first. What's the first step you would do? Turn to your neighbor, talk to them. Okay, so what's the first thing, everyone, we're going to do? What am I writing? X equals negative 4, and then again x equals negative 12. That's the first step. Okay, to your neighbor, tell them what you would do for each of these equations. Okay, what am I doing? Adding what? Okay, so we got x plus 4 is equal to 0, and then the other one I'm adding 12, right? Okay, next, describe what you're going to do to each of these binomials. And use the property. Say the property you're going to use. Okay? Turn your neighbor, go. Okay, what property am I using? X plus 4 times x plus 12 is equal to 0. I want you to finish up this problem for me. I'll give you about 30 seconds. You're multiplying it out. You can check with your neighbor to make sure you got the right answer. Go. You should have the following. Y is equal to x squared plus 16x plus 48. Okay? Number 2. Let's have you do this one by yourself. Go. Here you go. Y is equal to x squared minus 22x plus 17. Plus 117. Sorry about that. Plus 117. Okay? Raise your hand if you made a silly mistake on your adding or subtracting. Okay? Please fix it. Okay, next one. This is supposed to say number 4. I'm not sure why it says number 1. Actually, it's supposed to say number 5. Okay, so I'm going to start us off on number 5. We just did number 4, right? Okay, so number 5. T is equal to negative 5/6 and negative 1/2. So let me start us off. You do the same thing you did before. So you're going to take T is equal to negative 5/6 and T is equal to negative 1/2. Look at number 2 in your notes now and describe to your neighbor what you think you would do next. Go. Okay. Someone, what would I do next? Multiply by the denominators. Good. So I'm going to multiply. I'm going to focus on one of these at a time. So we're going to multiply by 6 first. So you got 6 times t is equal to negative 5. And then I'm going to add 5 to both sides, where I get 6t plus 5 is equal to 0. And that's a binomial now, right? Okay. I want you to do the same thing here for the second one. And you're going to multiply it out and give me your final answer. Go. I'll give you about a minute and a half. Thank you. So number 5, you should have had this binomial, so we're going to multiply these out. 6t plus 5 times 2t plus 1, and your final answer is that. Oh, excuse me. Okay. That's it for number 5. Okay, any questions on number 5? Most of you got it right. That's good. Number 6. Now, number 6, there's what letters in the solution there from the beginning? I is an imaginary number, so let's think back from imaginary numbers. What's I squared equal to? Turn your neighbor, tell me what I squared is equal to. Good, okay, so that's a little hint. I want you to do this one like you did number 5, but keep that I in mind. Okay? Go. Okay, so we got, remember you got 2a plus 5i is equal to 0, and then 2a minus 5i is equal to 0. Raise your hand if you got this part right first. Okay, good. We got 2 binomials now. 2a plus 5i times 2a minus 5i. When I multiply these out, what kind of problem is this? What kind of problem is this? We're squaring the first term, squaring the last term. The signs are different, so what's it called? Difference of squares. This is a difference of squares problem. So what's 2a times 2a? 4a squared. What's 5a times 5a? 25i squared. Put a minus sign in the middle, which is all equal to 0. Right? That's how quick you should be able to do that. What's I squared equal to? Negative 1 times negative 25 is positive 25. So your answer will be the following. Oh. Okay? That's how you do that. Does that make sense? Now, if I wanted to work this out from last week, remember we did take a square root of both sides? So I could actually, if I were to factor this out like I did last week, got 4a squared is equal to 25 is equal to 0. Subtract 25 on both sides. Divide both sides by 4. Take a square root of both sides. You get a is equal to square root of negative 25. And this positive and negative square root of 4. Right? So square root of negative 25 is 5i. Square root of 4 is 2. You see that? Weren't these the original answers I got at the top? Yeah? Okay, good. So that's how we work it out. All right, so what I'd like you to do now is turn your neighbor, talk about these 4 questions.